They were four brothers, strong men who had spent their lives taming wild land and hiding their loneliness behind hard work and pride. When the nights grew too quiet and the ranch too empty, they did something no one in town ever imagined. They sent for brides. The letters were written, the promises sealed, and the whole town waited for the day four women would step off that dusty stagecoach. But when the coach finally arrived, what came out left every soul frozen, every whisper caught in the throat. These weren't just four brides. They were bound by something no one expected, something that turned curiosity into shock and shock into silence. The truth of who they were shattered every assumption. And from that moment on, nothing in the brothers' lives or the town's would ever be the same. Four brothers had ordered brides, but who arrived left the town speechless. The small frontier town lay under a restless sky, its dusty streets alive with whispers. Folks leaned against weather-worn porches, their eyes tracking the trail that led west. Something unusual had stirred the air, something that pulled everyone out from behind their doors. That morning, the townsfolk had gathered because of the Harper brothers. Four men, each one strong, proud, and stubborn in his own way, had done something the town never expected. They had sent for brides. In a place where women were scarce, where loneliness pressed harder than the desert sun, the idea of four brothers bringing wives from far away set hearts racing and tongues wagging. The Harper brothers weren't men easily ignored. Samuel, the eldest, carried the weight of the ranch and the family on his broad shoulders. He was the kind of man whose silence spoke louder than most men's shouting. Next was James, fiery and quick with both temper and laughter, a man who chased storms rather than waited for them. Then came Daniel, the quiet thinker, eyes always seeing farther than the horizon, his words few but sharp. And finally Luke, the youngest, reckless and restless, with a charm that made him dangerous. Together, they worked the land, fought off droughts and debts, and stood as a wall against anyone who tried to break them. But behind that wall, each man carried a hunger for something more than cattle and dust. They longed for companionship, for softness in a world built from grit. So they had written letters, careful, clumsy things that carried across oceans. Promises were sealed with stamps, words folded into envelopes that spoke of land, of loyalty, of a chance at a better life. And now, months later, the day had come. The town was waiting to see if those promises had brought back flesh and blood. The stagecoach rattled over the ridge, its wheels cutting into silence as if the very earth held its breath. Children craned their necks, women exchanged knowing glances, and men muttered under their breath. Four brothers, four brides. Everyone expected four strangers stepping down, unsure and nervous. Everyone expected a scene tidy enough to gossip about for months. But no one expected what truly came. As the coach slowed, Samuel stood straighter, adjusting his hat, his jaw clenched like a man facing battle. James shifted impatiently, his hands fidgeting. Daniel's eyes narrowed, searching already for details. Others would miss. And Luke grinned as though the whole world were a game about to deal him a winning hand. The door of the stage swung open, and for a heartbeat, nothing happened. Dust swirled in the pause, carrying with it the weight of anticipation. Then, one by one, the women stepped out. The first woman carried herself with a dignity that silenced even the most restless tongue. Dark hair fell in waves around her shoulders, her eyes steady and unafraid. She looked at the brothers as if she had already judged their worth. The second followed close, lighter in frame, her smile tentative but warm, a softness that drew eyes, like moths to flame. The third emerged slower, her expression unreadable, guarded, as though she carried secrets heavier than her small hands could hold. And then came the fourth. Young, striking, her steps bold, her eyes bright with fire. Four women, each one different. Yet when they stood together, a ripple tore through the crowd. Gasps carried down the street like wildfire. Old Mrs. Kinney clutched her shawl tighter. The blacksmith muttered something under his breath. A child whispered, "They look alike." And then the realization struck the town all at once, leaving silence heavy and unshakable. They weren't just four strangers plucked from distant lands. They weren't random matches bound only by letters and promises. They were sisters. Four. Sisters had come to meet four brothers. Samuel's jaw tightened. James blinked in disbelief. Daniel studied their faces, seeing the shared lines, the unmistakable resemblance. Luke let out a sharp laugh that carried more nerves than humor. The town was stunned, but the brothers felt the weight differently. For what seemed like forever, they had each imagined a separate future, a woman who would belong only to him. But now those futures were tangled, the boundaries blurred by bloodlines and loyalties they had not foreseen. The women stood together, shoulders squared as though they had expected the shock. They weren't timid brides stepping into the unknown. They were united, and in that unity was a strength that unsettled the crowd. The eldest sister, with calm defiance in her eyes, finally spoke, her voice steady enough to cut through the silence. "We answered your letters," she said, looking not just at the brothers but at the town that watched. "But we did not come for coin or escape. We came because we seek love, and we came together as sisters." The words struck deep. The town stirred with murmurs, questions unraveling faster than answers. Why had they come together? What bond drove them to risk everything, side by side? And what would it mean for the Harper brothers, who had not asked for sisters but individual wives? Suspicion simmered alongside awe. Had the brothers been tricked? Or was this something greater, something fate had written beyond paper and ink? The youngest, Luke, took a step forward, grin faltering as he searched the women's faces. "You mean to tell us," he said, his voice caught between disbelief and wonder, "that the four of you, you're bound already?" The eldest nodded once, her chin high. "By blood, by loyalty. Where one goes, all go. That is our vow." Gasps rippled again through the crowd. The idea of four brothers marrying four sisters was beyond gossip. It was legend in the making. Some faces in the crowd lit with fascination, others darkened with unease. The preacher's wife crossed herself, whispering a prayer under her breath. The sheriff scratched his jaw, as though weighing what trouble might come of this. And the brothers, each in their own silence, realized that what had just stepped off that stage was no simple answer to their loneliness. It was the beginning of something that could either bind them stronger than ever or tear them apart. The town waited, the air thick with expectation. But the women said nothing more, their secret half revealed, their motives yet hidden. The Harper brothers exchanged glances, four men bound by blood now staring at four women bound the same way. And in that charged silence, everyone knew the world they thought they understood had just shifted. The street remained still, the weight of the moment pressing down on every soul who stood there. Four brothers staring at four sisters. The coachman tugged at his hat, eager to leave the tension behind, but no one moved. No one dared break the fragile silence. The Harper brothers, who had weathered storms, debts, and danger, now faced something far more unsettling, uncertainty of the heart. Samuel, the eldest, finally stepped forward. His boots scraped against the dirt, echoing louder than they should have in the hushed street. "You've come far," he said, his voice steady but laced with suspicion. "But this town wasn't expecting sisters. We weren't expecting sisters." His eyes searched the eldest woman's face, as if her calm defiance held the explanation he demanded. She did not flinch. "We wrote our letters together," she said. "We answered your promises with honesty. We chose to come side by side, because our vow is to each other first. No man will divide us." A ripple went through the crowd. It wasn't only a declaration of love, it was a line drawn in the dust between family loyalty and marriage vows. James let out a sharp breath, his temper flickering like dry tinder. "So what is this then?" he barked. "Some game? You think 4 men will take 4 women just because fate lined it up neat? Or do you mean to trap us into something we never asked for?" The youngest sister's eyes flashed, a spark of fire in her gaze. "We didn't come to trap," she shot back. "We came because you wrote of lives too lonely, of land too wide for one man to bear. You asked for wives. We chose to answer, but not as strangers torn apart, as sisters, bound still." Daniel, who had remained silent, finally spoke, his words softer but edged with thought. "Then the truth is this: if one of you refuses, all refuse. If one is welcomed, all are welcomed. That's what you're telling us." The sisters nodded, their unity unshaken. The crowd stirred again, voices rising with speculation. Was it destiny or madness? 4 brothers, 4 sisters. Some whispered it was a blessing, families bound to families, doubling strength and loyalty. Others muttered of danger, of secrets yet untold. The preacher frowned, his hands clasped tight as though wrestling with heaven itself. And the brothers, each bound by his own yearning, felt the weight of a choice they had never imagined making. Luke, restless as ever, broke into a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Well," he drawled, "if it's fate that's playing cards, then maybe the hand ain't so bad. Sisters or no, you're still 4 women who answered us. Maybe that's enough." But Samuel's stare cut through his words, sharp and warning. "Don't treat this like a game," the eldest growled. "This isn't a hand of cards, this is our lives." His gaze turned back to the sisters. "And I'll not gamble my brother's futures on half-told truths. You say you seek love. Then tell us, why together? Why now? What drove you across the ocean with nothing but your vow to each other?" For a heartbeat, silence clung again. Then the second sister, the one whose smile had been soft and hesitant, stepped forward. Her voice trembled but held. "Because we lost everything once, before. A father who broke us apart, a mother buried without a prayer. When the world tried to scatter us, we swore never again. If we marry where we remain whole. If we love without losing each other." Her eyes glistened, but she did not break. The confession settled heavy on the crowd. Whispers turned to sighs, some faces softening with sympathy, others tightening with unease. Love and loyalty bound together could be noble or dangerous. James raked a hand through his hair, frustration pulling at him. "So that's it? You walk into our town, into our lives with sorrow in your past and vows in your mouths, and we're meant to take it as gospel." His voice cracked with something deeper than anger. Perhaps fear. Perhaps longing. The eldest sister met his fire with calm steel. "Not gospel. Choice. We give you truth, and you give us yours. Do you take us as we are, or do we leave?" The words cut deep. The choice hung in the air like a blade, sharp enough to draw blood from silence alone. Samuel's fists clenched at his sides, torn between duty and desire. Daniel's eyes flickered, calculating the weight of the future against the pull of the present. Luke's grin finally faltered into something raw, uncertain. And James looked away as though the truth was too heavy to face. The town watched, their breath held. Everyone had expected a simple story, 4 brides stepping down, 4 weddings to follow. Instead, they witnessed something far greater, a test not just of love but of family, loyalty, and fate itself. Samuel finally spoke again, his voice low but carrying. "This isn't a decision for one moment or one man. We'll not answer here, not in front of eyes hungry for gossip. You'll come with us, to the ranch. There, truth will show itself clearer than in any street." The sisters exchanged glances, then nodded as one. Their unity was unbreakable, and in that unity was both defiance and grace. Without another word, they gathered their belongings from the coach, standing tall beneath the weight of judgment. The Harper brothers led them toward their horses, and together, under the eyes of a town that buzzed with disbelief, they rode toward the wide expanse of land that stretched beyond the horizon. But even as the dust rose behind them, the whispers lingered. Some said it was fate, others swore it was folly. Yet all agreed on one thing: what had begun that day would be remembered. For 4 brothers had ordered brides, expecting strangers. But what arrived had left the town speechless, their lives forever altered by 4 sisters who carried both love and a secret vow that no one could yet measure. And as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of fire and blood, the Harper brothers knew their world had shifted. What lay ahead would test not only their hearts, but the very bonds that had kept them strong. The choice was no longer simply about brides. It was about destiny, about family, about a truth larger than any one man could bear alone. The town would talk for years. But for the brothers and the sisters, the story had only just begun. The ride to the Harper Ranch was quiet, the air thick with questions that no one dared ask aloud. The sisters rode side by side, their shoulders squared, eyes fixed on the horizon. The brothers flanked them, each lost in his own storm of thought. Behind them, the town slowly disappeared, but the whispers lingered like ghosts in the dust. When they reached the ranch, the land stretched wide and lonely, a kingdom of cattle and soil built on sweat and stubborn will. Samuel dismounted first, his boots sinking into familiar earth. He turned to face the sisters, his voice steady. "This is our home. If you stay, it becomes yours too. But this house does not take well to secrets. You owe us the whole of your truth." The eldest sister stepped forward, her eyes unwavering. "Then hear it. We are not women cast aside or sold into this fate. We chose it. Because love is rare where we came from. Men there sought power, not hearts. So we looked beyond, and we found your letters. 4 men searching for love, and we, 4 sisters unwilling to be parted. We came not as bargains, not as strangers, but as women who will not be broken again." Her words carried across the empty fields, striking deeper than any blade. Luke swallowed hard, his bravado stripped away. Daniel's eyes softened with a pain he didn't speak. James's fists unclenched, the fire in him tempered by something fragile. And Samuel, the man who had carried their burdens longest, bowed his head as though a weight he could not name pressed upon him. Silence wrapped around them until it felt unbearable. Then Daniel spoke, his voice low. "You came seeking love, but love is not built in a day. It is tested, shaped, endured. If you remain, know this: our ranch demands sacrifice. Our family demands truth. And if we choose you, we choose all of you, as you have chosen each other." The sisters glanced at one another, and in their unity was an answer stronger than words. The youngest lifted her chin, her voice fierce. "Then test us. We did not come for ease. We came for love, even if love must be forged in fire." A hush fell over the land as though the earth itself had heard their vow. The sun dipped behind the hills, casting the ranch in crimson light. In that glow, 4 brothers and 4 sisters stood facing one another, bound not by chance, but by something larger. Destiny written in letters, carried across oceans, revealed in the shock of a single day. The town would never forget. They would say the Harper brothers ordered brides, but what arrived left them speechless. For instead of strangers, 4 sisters had come, bringing with them loyalty unbreakable, secrets untold, and the promise of a future that could shatter or save them all. And on that ranch, under a blood-red sky, the story of 4 brothers and 4 sisters truly began, etched in whispers, sealed in hearts and destined to echo far beyond the dust of one small town. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support keeps these powerful stories alive. Make sure to subscribe to Legacy Ignited so you never miss the next journey of love, loss, and destiny. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being part of this family.